Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not
Two
kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today.
Today we have some players and DMs looking for some advice, and your absolutely favorite totally real humans are going to be weighing in. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Am I the asshole for not allowing one of my players to start a romance with one of my NPCs? By Reddit user Phoenix Let's Play. I'm currently running a Star Wars themed D&D 5e campaign for my friend group. We are 6 sessions in and everything is working out great. Yesterday, one of my players, let's call him Player 1, texted me about a message he got from another player, Player 2. The message was about a plan to start a romance with one of the NPCs, an NPC they met like 2 times. As it turns out, Player 2 sent this message to everyone in the party except me. Don't get me wrong, I don't need to know everything, but that's definitely something I should know about. Or am I wrong? Player 2 is gay, and I absolutely have no problem with that, just to be clear. My problem is that the NPC he wants to date is male, as well as my player, and I absolutely don't know how strong he would want to play out this romance. I'm feeling quite uncomfortable with role-playing this romance as I'm heterosexual. Furthermore, something similar happened in another campaign where he and I were players. He tried to date an NPC as well, but as it turns out, he actually had a crush on our male DM. Now I am worried something similar will happen at our table because I like Player 2 and his character. So yeah, I probably won't let him play this romance out, but what do you think?
Alright, so here's the good news. You are the DM, so how far things go ultimately is up to you. You can say, okay, I'm not comfortable playing out anything explicit, so flirting, all of that fun romantic stuff, great, and then we fade to black. And that's just a rule that you have for romance in general. Having said that, whatever rules apply to this relationship also need to apply to the relationship anybody else wants to have that is not a gay relationship.
Essentially, as a DM, you need to just define your boundaries with what you're comfortable with, how far you're willing to go with romantic role-playing. But as Man says, this needs to apply to all romances, not just the homosexual ones. So it's a pretty easy fix. You just gotta talk to your players and define boundaries.
I'll also say that you're worried about he has a crush on you or something like that, and that's the reason he wants to play this out. First of all, that's not in your control. And second of all, that just because a gay man wants to have a romance with your NPC does not mean that he is interested in you. And I'm sure you don't mean it in the way that a lot of straight men do mean the, oh, well, I don't want my gay friend to have a crush on me, but it does come off a little bit that way. So be very, very careful in handling that so it doesn't come off like you think that he's trying to hit on you, because he probably isn't. How to handle a lone wolf player by Reddit user Asher302. I've been in a campaign for about a year and it's gone great so far. However, to make a long story short, one of our players' characters died and was basically reincarnated with a different personality, despite being the same guy physically. We all liked the original character, but the new version of him loves to go against the party. He steals loot and is generally unhelpful, and now he's secretly working with the cult that we're fighting. This happened off screen, and we as players know, but our characters just have our suspicions. I feel like it doesn't make any sense for our characters, who are all do-gooders, but there's not even really a way for us to react when he antagonizes us because the DM doesn't allow for PvP. If we catch him doing something bad, all we can do is just tell him to knock it off, basically. Even when he is behaving, he still wants to do his own thing. When we enter the new locations, he always insists on going off on his own while everyone else stays together, making the DM do multiple scenes while we listen to the independent adventure for like half an hour. The hard part is that the player seems to be having more fun with this new personality too. I think he enjoyed his character before the reincarnation, but he seems much more engaged than before. We don't want to kick him out because we're all friends, but it feels like a tough situation.
I think what this calls for is a conversation with the DM about what this guy can do as effectively an evil player in a good campaign. What are his objectives? How can he work with the party to put the story along? and potentially create a fun conflict dynamic rather than a frustrating one. I say this as someone who has played an evil character with objectives contrary to the party in a campaign before, but I defined and created my character specifically so that he would work with the party for the most part, rather than be a constant nuisance.
Yeah, there are definitely ways for a more evil-aligned character to still work with a good party. I get that the DM doesn't want any PvP, and if that's a hard and fast rule, that's fine. But maybe then there has to be rules around, can he steal loot and other things that sort of go against the party's values. Maybe he can consider it within his best interest to act a little bit more good while secretly going behind their backs, so they're not constantly being antagonized, and that way he can achieve his goals without making the party go crazy and then potentially ending up in a place where the party just wants him out.
Essentially, you just need to balance the actions the evil player can take with counter actions the rest of the party can take to do something about it. If you're not going to allow PvP, but you're going to allow him to interfere with the party, you've got to find a balance there so both sides can take action and also not frustrate each other so they're not constantly working against other players.
How do I bring up nicely that my friend's character is making me uncomfortable? By Reddit user Sogana Mitora. So I just attended a session 1 for a new campaign with my regular group. Never had any problem players before. They're a great bunch, and I know them well. But one of the characters is honestly freaking me out. It's a child's mind in a man's body sort of character. His emotional and mental development was stunted due to being raised as a dog for an evil empire, complete with Babytalk tone voice and calling his master daddy. It's definitely not a fetish or thing. I know him too well, and no one else thinks it's weird. I had to miss session 0. I was keeping up with stuff with the group chat, but I didn't get enough details on the characters to know about this. And I never specifically thought to go, I don't like adults doing baby talk during our consent/red flag/trigger, etc. talks because, well, it never occurred to me that any of these guys would do that sort of character. I did try to deal with it, but I was so viscerally uncomfortable with the character that I honestly had trouble role-playing with him and listening to his scenes. But considering that it was my fault that I wasn't at session 0 and the DM was already incorporated the character's specific lore into the story arc, I don't know if I would be an a-hole for objecting now. Should I bring it up? I don't want to hurt my friend's feelings or put out the DM. Maybe I should drop out since I'm the one with the problem. How should I handle this?
This ultimately comes down to a failure of communication. Yeah, you weren't at session 0, and okay, yeah, you do accept that you really should have been there. Since you weren't there, you probably could have had a conversation with the DM to ask them what came up, just to see if there was anything that'd be triggering or upsetting to you that came up then. But you could ask for a modification to the character to at least improve the speech. You can still play a dumb idiot without the baby talk and without anything that might make you or anyone else at the table uncomfortable.
Yeah, I do feel there was a little bit of a breakdown in communication because when it comes to something like that where you have a character who is basically raised like a dog, and that's a very traumatic thing. Maybe that's something that you should talk to the rest of the party about, especially the person that wasn't there. Because to me, if I heard that and I heard from a character like, oh, they were raised that way, I would have questions about the way that they were going to be playing that character and if it would make everybody at the table feel uncomfortable. Honestly, probably just have a conversation with the DM. Say, listen, this is making me uncomfortable. Is there a way that we can maybe mediate a conversation or something like that? I talked to the DM. Turns out that he was weirded out by the character too, but thought that he was the only one. He's going to talk to our friend about the character. Thanks for giving me a push, guys. So basically just what we said. Talk to the DM. Hopefully OP it worked out, and hopefully you guys are all able to play D&D together and have fun.
Advice for a player fudging their roles by Reddit user #thecrafty. I play with a group of friends from university, having been in a couple of campaigns run by different GMs. Currently we play 2 campaigns bi-weekly with myself running one of these. These sessions are over voice chat due to everyone moving after university. All great players who I get along with, and they are all involved in the roleplay and combat sides of the campaign. However, a more recent addition to these games was a close friend of some of the other players. They are nice and friendly and I get along with them, and they are notably very involved with the roleplay and their characters are always interesting and fleshed out. But I have come to suspect that they may be fudging their roles. The group has always used IRL dice rolls, and we discussed beforehand that we would continue to do so despite being on voice chat. I trusted them all to be truthful, and it seems that other than this one player, they completely are, with a consistent mix of good and bad rolls. But this one player only gets good rolls, and I mean good rolls. I first noticed it in the finale of another player's campaign before I took the slot to run my own. By my count, they rolled 8 natural 20s, which is statistically crazy. The GM and no other players brought it up other than being astounded at the luck. I kept noticing that they would roll well and never badly throughout sessions, but rolls are sometimes sparse in our games because we are very roleplay heavy. Another of my friends ran the first session of their campaign a week back, with the potential fudger taking part. So I privately tallied the rolls that this player made. They are as follows: 25, nat 20, nat 20, nat 20, 24, 23. The 2 damage rolls they made were each spells that dealt 3d8 damage. The first did max damage and the second did 22 or 24. To me it seemed like obvious dice fudging, but I am confused why they are doing it so highly and so blatantly when they are completely invested in the games and their character otherwise. I plan to tally the next game or so with them to confirm before speaking to the other players about whether they had noticed the same. I know I probably should just confront them about it, and it's easily remedied by asking them to use an online roller that we can see. But I don't want to create friction or distrust between the players, especially not if people pick sides. Any ideas?
Yeah, I would say you're either dealing with somebody with weighted dice or they're fudging their rolls. You would be surprised how blatant some people are with their dice fudging. They're not necessarily smart enough to think, oh, maybe I should have a bad roll in there every once in a while just so people don't get suspicious.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Talk to the DM. Tell them, I think that this player is fudging their rolls. I'm not trying to be an a-hole here, but I just sort of feel like that's what's going on. If the DM says, live and let live, it's fine, well, then there's not really a lot you can do other than talking to the player directly. I wouldn't advise doing that because that could start a whole bunch of drama. I think at the end of the day, you just have to decide, are you okay being at the same table as somebody who's doing that? Is it actually impacting the gameplay to the point that you're not enjoying it?
This is why whenever playing virtually, I'd always insist on using actual rolls. It's the only way to just be sure no one is doing this. Unfortunately, this does always impact the game because it muscles out other players. Everyone else may be getting bad rolls, and so will be failing at stuff, and this player is always succeeding and so gets to achieve everything. It just really kills the spirit of the game as well. If one person is doing this, it just ruins it for everyone else involved, in my opinion. Track it another couple of games, and then just bring it up.
Also, another easy fix to this might just be, listen, guys, why don't we start doing like virtual tabletops? Since we've been doing this virtually for so long, and we're going to continue to do this virtually, everybody's using the digital dice, and so it sort of levels out the playing field from that perspective. Am I a Bad DM by Relative Act 3701. Yesterday, I was playing with my online friends with some D&D. I wanted it to be a standard session, so the only actual rules that I changed was to make it more player-friendly, since this was our first time playing a serious campaign. The only rules that I changed were that there would be only one currency, aka instead of gold pieces, I chose electrum pieces. There was no hunger or anything of that sort, but food acted more like Baldur's Gate 3, where it would be used to do a long rest. The only question I asked from them was to read the books, Xanathar's, Tasha's, and the Player's Handbook, which they did not. Every single time I would try to put some music on, it would constantly switch to weird femboy ASMR for some reason. The worst part about all of this is that they never truly finished their character sheets, most of it being blank, even though I sent them 3 different videos of how to make a character with the books I not only bought, but sent them PDF files so that they can use the books too. The spellcasters constantly kept using spells that never existed, and never consulted with me about the homebrewed spells. They constantly kept trying to kill every NPC they could, and then had problems with me that I couldn't ever find them any quests. And then they found a dungeon that was part of my side quest where I snapped. I wanted to give them a hellhound puppy companion, however, they were interested in killing it. After which they found an old clay golem covered in moss with a small tree growing out of its back. a boss I worked really hard on to make it tough, yet easy enough to kill since they were all still level 2, after which they rolled a nat 20 and started to essay the golem. I was too angry to just continue, so I told them that it was the BBEG and they won, and I left. Am I just a bad DM, or am I playing with bad people? Because altogether I really like D&D, however, playing with them just made me more angry than happy.
Are you a bad DM, or are you playing with bad people? Yes. You've messed up here, OP, and so did your players. First of all, don't require your players to read 3 large books back to back. Most people playing for the first time, they do need to read some sections of it, but ultimately it's for you as a DM to guide them through it, to have at least a vague concept of the rules, and check the books when you need to. Don't set your players that kind of homework. Ultimately, it sounds like the people you were DMing for weren't serious about playing D&D, making up spells, SAing a clay golem, which is problematic in all the usual ways, but also just sounds very unpleasant for everyone involved. You should have been more prepared as a DM, had backup scenarios, been more prepared for things to go off the rails, and been better at controlling the table. This is just something to walk away from. Don't try to salvage this game.
Yeah, I don't think this game is savable. I think the big lesson out of all of this is why we have session zeros. Things like SA, no homebrew spells, and even going over how to create their character sheets and finish their character sheets can happen in a session 0. That's the beauty of it. That's what it's there for. I agree with you here. I don't think that these characters necessarily were being serious. I think they just wanted to go and be murder hobos, and SA characters apparently just walk away. But if you decide you want to DM in the future, just learn that, okay, I need to be better at controlling the table, and more importantly, I need to have a session 0 where we all sit down and talk about expectations, and do not make your players read 3 big handbooks. That's your job as a DM.
Hey man.
Hey, what?
What do you call a party of orcish bards?
I don't know. What do you call them?
An orchestra. And with that, we have definitely not been two kobolds in a trench coat. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.